The hearing will come to order. Today we're holding an oversight hearing to examine the Inspector General's recent report on the FBI's handling of allegations against Larry Nassar, the predator who abused hundreds of young women before he was charged and convicted in 2017. Almost 5 years ago, exactly, on September 12, 2016, the Indianapolis Star broke the story of Nassar's sexual assaults. The story blew the whistle on decades of Nassar's abuse. Unbeknownst to the public at that time, the Federal Bureau of Investigation had received information about Nassar's conduct 15 months prior to the article, yet failed to take any action to protect Nassar's victims or investigate the abuses. Since then, numerous reports of sexual assault in athletic programs have highlighted athletes' special vulnerability to abuse. Last week in my home state of Illinois, an article published in the Chicago Tribune spotlighted a former Chicago Blackhawks coach who pled guilty to sexual contact with a high school student he was coaching. Cases like these make clear that sexual abuse of young athletes is a persistent problem that teams, leagues, athletic associations, and other institutions are failing to prevent. It shocks the conscience when those failures come from law enforcement itself, and yet that is exactly what happened in the Nassar case. For decades, while Larry Nassar worked as team doctor for a number of gymnastic organizations, he abused young athletes under the guise of medical treatment. Nassar used his trusted position to take advantage of his patients. He used the competitive nature of sports to hide in plain sight. By the time Nassar was convicted and sentenced in federal and Michigan state court, over 150 survivors had come forward to recount the impact of these horrific crimes. Today, we believe Nassar abused more than 300 athletes before he was brought to justice. As the details of Nassar's crimes emerged, there's been a consistent theme of neglect and inaction by those who are responsible for protecting the athletes. Between 2018 and 2019, a subcommittee of the Senate Commerce Committee, led by our colleagues, Senator Richard Blumenthal and Senator Jerry Moran, conducted an 18-month investigation into this case. The investigation concluded that the U.S. Olympic Committee and the USA Gymnastics knowingly concealed abuse by Nassar between the summer of 2015 and September of 2016. The Senate passed 2 bills aimed at addressing the failures in the Nassar case with overwhelming bipartisan support: the Protecting Young Victims from Sexual Abuse Act of 2017, sponsored by Senator Feinstein, and the Empowering Olympic, Paralympic, and Amateur Athletes Act of 2020 by Senators Moran and Blumenthal. Both extended the duty of certain adults to report suspected child abuse. These are good and important steps, but the reporting requirement in both laws is not worth much if law enforcement and the FBI fail to respond and immediately and aggressively investigate the abuse cases, and that's exactly what happened in the Nassar case. The Inspector General's findings in his July report paint a shocking picture of FBI dereliction of duty and gross incompetence. The Inspector General's scathing report details the neglect and inaction of the FBI in inspecting the Nassar allegations, beginning in July of 2015, 15 months before they were publicly reported. The facts revealed by the Inspector General exposed apathetic, incompetent, and unethical senior FBI officials. In the 15-month period that FBI officials shirked their responsibility, Nassar abused at least 70 young athletes. For many of them, this was a continuation, but for others, they were abused for the first time while the FBI sat on the case. The FBI waited weeks from the initial report to undertake any investigative activity. The FBI failed to timely interview key witnesses. The FBI failed to properly document witness statements and store evidence. The FBI failed to inform state and local authorities of Nassar's abuse when it believed the assault allegations likely did not fall within federal jurisdiction. One senior FBI official went so far as to seek a job with USA Gymnastics CEO at the same time he was overseeing the FBI's failed investigative effort. And then, to add insult to injury, the FBI supervisors doctored the paperwork, misled the media, and lied to the Inspector General in an effort to conceal their dereliction of duty. Some may be tempted to minimize this misconduct as a fault of a few bad apples. Make no mistake, egregious failures like this one do not arise out of nowhere. They are enabled by systematic organizational failures of training, supervision, hiring, and promotion. I'm committed to pursuing legislation to hold abusers accountable and provide justice to survivors. I know many of my colleagues feel exactly the same. Today, our focus is on the FBI. How did it fail so badly when it came to Larry Nassar's victims? What are FBI leaders today doing to ensure that this never happens again? Today, we are fortunate to hear from 4 outstanding witnesses who survived Larry Nassar's abuse. They and the hundreds of athletes who also suffered at the hands of Nassar deserve much better from everyone, including the FBI. We'll also hear from the Inspector General and the FBI Director, who owe these young women and this committee an explanation of what the FBI is doing to ensure that this never happens again. And I'll add that I am disappointed. We asked the Justice Department to testify about their decision not to prosecute the 2 FBI officials who made false statements to the IG. I understand it's a long-standing department policy not to comment on decisions not to prosecute, but robust oversight of the Department of Justice is a core responsibility of this committee. I'm committed to ensuring that committee members have an opportunity to question the Department of Justice about this issue at an oversight hearing in the fall. The FBI's handling of the Nassar case is a stain on the Bureau. As chairman of the Judiciary Committee, I'm committed to working to ensure that the failures of the FBI, the gross failures of the FBI in this case, will never be repeated. Now I recognize Ranking Member Grassley.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin, for a very strong and appropriate statement that you just made. Thank you for holding this hearing. Thank you for involving me and others in this hearing as well. As the former chairman of this committee, I convened a hearing in 2017 on the importance of protecting young athletes against abuse. It took place before Larry Nassar, the now disgraced team doctor for the USA Gymnastics, was convicted. Our committee heard then from other gymnasts about a culture in competitive sports that made it difficult for many girls to come forward and report their sexual abuse. That hearing convinced me of the need to champion legislation on which I worked closely with Senator Feinstein, then ranking member, in 2017. Its enactment means that coaches, instructors, and others who work with young athletes now are mandatory reporters of child exploitation or abuse. Because oversight of the FBI is one of our committee's important duties, I also repeatedly pressed the FBI for more information on its handling of the Nassar investigation from 2017 to the present. FBI personnel ignored my staff's request in January 2018 for a briefing, and when I contacted the FBI by letter to restate the request, I was advised that the Inspector General was reviewing the matter. The FBI, while one of our premier law enforcement agencies, has stumbled in several ways in recent years. In a recent example, an Associated Press investigating identified half a dozen sexual misconduct allegations involving senior FBI personnel over the past 5 years, with each of the accused officials avoiding discipline. Another shocking example came to light this summer when the Inspector General completed his report on the handling of sexual abuse allegations against the former team doctor for USA Gymnastics. It was then that we learned that the FBI severely let down dozens of teenage girls, several of whom bravely came forward in 2015 to report their abuse. Children suffered needlessly because of multiple agents in multiple offices that the FBI neglected to share Nassar's allegations with their law enforcement counterparts at the state and local levels. Disturbingly, the abuse occurred at the hands of someone who was entrusted with their medical treatment and well-being. Brave survivors, now poised young women, are with us today, and we welcome you and your testimony. The FBI, in its July 13th response to the Inspector General's report, attributes this episode to a few agents at the FBI field offices who neglected to carry out their duties properly. I suspect there's much more to that story. One issue, not talked about much, is that the FBI has a division in Washington, D.C., known as the Violent Crimes Against Children Unit. This component of headquarters was notified by two of its field offices about the Nassar allegations way back in 2015 and 2016, respectively. The Children's Unit employs subject matter experts, so it is well positioned in the FBI to guide those field offices on their duties in child exploitation cases. Because it's housed at headquarters, this Children's Unit also was uniquely positioned to play a coordinating role by supervising case transfers to the appropriate FBI field offices. And this unit was well positioned to offer qualitative supervision of field officers' work. For example, by ensuring that follow-up occurs in sensitive cases. Tragically, it's obvious these things did not happen. The FBI, including this Children's Unit, also placed publicity and its image before victims' protection in this case. The Children's Unit helped develop a white paper, or more accurately, a whitewash, after the Nassar case attracted national attention. Ensuring that truthful information was provided about the FBI's role in this investigation was clearly not the main priority. This is a serious problem at the heart of the FBI, not a case of a few errant agents. At today's hearing, I hope to hear more about exactly who at FBI headquarters, other than its Children's Unit, knew about the Nassar allegations, how and when they learned of these allegations, and what they did in response. If there's one thing the Inspector General's report illustrates, it's this, that we need to make sure the Bureau is more effective and held more accountable. This episode is unfortunate too, because, as I've said repeatedly, there are many extremely fine men and women in the FBI, and many who serve their country well as employees of that superb agency. I look forward to hearing from young women who were the first to bravely come forward and share their experience of abuse. I also hope to hear from our government witnesses on how to improve the FBI's approach in child exploitation cases and how to ensure negligent agents are held accountable, just like Chairman Durbin has asked. Finally, I want to mention that I'm working on legislation to close the legislative loophole in the sex tourism statute that the Inspector General flagged in his report. This gap in the law allowed Larry Nassar to evade federal prosecution for assaulting children while traveling abroad, and that can never happen again. I look forward to working with the Inspector General, members on this committee, and making this necessary change in law. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Grassley, and we look forward to working with you on a bipartisan basis. I now recognize Senator Dianne Feinstein of California.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I welcome the opportunity to say a few words about this appalling abuse of young athletes and the failures of the FBI to protect them. It was more than 5 years ago that we heard about the horrific abuse perpetrated by Larry Nassar and began working to reform how amateur athletic organizations handle sexual abuse allegations. I have met several times with some of our witnesses, I believe 2 are here today, and other athletes who have been harmed by the conduct that we're all here today to discuss. And the strength and the courage that I have seen from these young women is really astonishing and a role model for others. They are really the champions for sexual abuse prevention who are speaking out to ensure other young athletes don't suffer as they did. Unfortunately, their bravery in some cases has been met with a disturbing lack of action within the FBI. The findings in the Justice Department's Inspector General July report found serious problems with how the FBI conducted its investigation of Larry Nassar. The agency's failures allowed a sexual predator to continue to abuse more than 70 young women. That is inexcusable, Mr. Chairman. It should not be a survivor's burden to continually seek justice and demand an end to their nightmares. That's the job of our law enforcement agencies, and the FBI candidly must do better. Hopefully, this hearing will make that clear. Now it's our turn to take action on behalf of these women. Congress must do everything we can to protect others that come after them. Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing, and hopefully we can ensure that these failures are never repeated.
Senator Feinstein, thanks for your leadership on this issue as well. Senator Cornyn.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and Chairman Ranking Member Grassley for holding this hearing and giving me a chance to say a few words here at the beginning. As these women and countless survivors before them have demonstrated, it takes tremendous courage for victims of sexual assault to come forward and tell their story. Whether it's telling a family member, a friend, or law enforcement about their abuse, there are fears that their claims will not be taken seriously, or they'll be ignored, or that the victim, will somehow be blamed. Those fears cause survivors to remain silent for months, years, or even a lifetime. Unfortunately, the FBI's mishandling of this case has done nothing to convince survivors that their trauma will be treated with the urgency and care it deserves. When survivors make the difficult decision to come forward, they should be treated with dignity and respect. That's the bare minimum, and it didn't happen here. If allegations raised by well-known world-class athletes are not taken seriously by the FBI, what hope do other victims of sexual assault have? If this monster was able to continue harming these women and girls after his victims first went to the FBI, how many other abusers have escaped justice? Again, if the FBI did so little in the investigation involving world-class athletes, what hope can an average American have? What faith can they have in the system? I wrote a letter to Inspector General Horowitz last summer urging him to release his report, which back then was overdue, so we could begin to answer some of these questions. I'm disappointed it took more than a year after that letter was sent for the report to be finally released, and it's fair to say that his report has left us with many questions. There were obviously catastrophic failures at multiple levels of law enforcement which resulted in direct harm of these young women. The FBI had 2 separate opportunities to do its job, and it failed. In fact, it was the University Police Department that finally did a real investigation, one that finally brought Nassar to justice. I've always believed that the FBI should be the gold standard for law enforcement, and I believe that by and large it is. But instead, in examples like this, we see failure of ethics, failure of competence, and dishonesty. I'm eager to ask Inspector General Horowitz, and Director Wray about the grave missteps made by the FBI, and more importantly, to understand the changes they will be implementing to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. We must demand real change and real accountability, and will not be satisfied by platitudes and vague promises about improved performance. This nation must be a place where, when victims speak, they are not ignored. And it must be a place where those who commit crimes like Larry Nassar are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And the FBI must demonstrate, as they have not attempted to do before, that they understand their failures, they will learn from them, and do better. And Mr. Chairman, I would just want to recognize the leadership of Senator Moran, who will be testifying here, and Senator Blumenthal on the part of the Commerce Committee in spearheading a lot of this investigation, urging us all to this point where we are today. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Cornyn, and I'll echo that. The next person to speak will be Senator Richard Blumenthal, who on our side of the aisle has been a real leader on the issue, together with his partner in this effort, Senator Jerry Moran, who will testify just briefly afterwards. Senator Blumenthal, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin, and my gratitude to you for holding this profoundly significant hearing, and to Senator Moran, my partner, who has worked tirelessly with me on this issue and been a great partner in our common effort. But most important, I really want to thank the athletes and survivors who are here. You have truly inspired us. I will never forget the moment that we stood in the Kennedy caucus room. There were 40 or more of you, and you told us that you had been failed repeatedly by institutions that were supposed to protect you, and you called on us to keep our word. Today's hearing is another step in our keeping the promise that we made to you then, that we would work to hold accountable the institutions that failed you and to reform them and make sure that this kind of wrongdoing, more than wrongdoing, heinous, hideous abuse never happens again. We have investigated and produced a report. We've asked the Inspector General to investigate as well, and he has produced a report. And let me just come right to the reason we're here today. It's not only that the FBI failed to do its job systematically and repeatedly, it is also the cover-up that occurred afterward, when FBI agents made material false statements and deceptive omissions referred by the Inspector General for criminal prosecution. Those referrals were declined without explanation, without any public explanation at all. My hope is that the Department of Justice, which was invited today and has declined to appear, will match your courage by explaining why those lies by FBI agents did not lead to criminal prosecution and accountability. And even days before this hearing, there had been no action, even administratively. Only with this hearing staring the FBI in the face did they fire one of those FBI agents. There's no question, Larry Nassar was a monster, a horrific predator. He was not the only monster in gymnastics, and gymnastics was not the only sport that had monsters. Our report focused not only on the monsters, but the enablers, the institutions that failed you, the schools like Michigan State University, USA Gymnastics, the coaches and trainers, they all looked the other way when you came to them. And then the FBI looked the other way in July of 2015. They looked the other way and did nothing until late 2016, almost 18 months later. And in that time period, dozens of young women lay before Larry Nassar, and he did with them what he wanted, with trauma and terror that will last a lifetime. That pain was preventable. It was needless. The FBI's failure to act had real human consequences. And that will be forever a stain on the FBI's reputation. But even more so, the cover-up that occurred afterward. Because when those agents came under scrutiny, they actually manufactured statements. They lied about what survivors told them. The ultimate abuse of authority. There is nothing we can do to reverse the pain and grief that Larry Nassar caused you, but we can take action against the law enforcers who became enablers. Those institutions became enablers, and so did the FBI. And so I call on the Department of Justice to come forward. They declined to do so today. Senator Feinstein and I specifically wrote them and urged them to be here. They owe the American people and you an explanation. And I call on the Department of Justice to pursue action, not just administrative action, but criminal prosecution where appropriate. This day is a hard one, probably a little bit scary for you, but also hard for all of us who have valued and respected the work of the FBI. The FBI has admitted, and I quote, "The actions and inactions of the FBI employees described in the OIG report are inexcusable and a discredit to this organization," end quote. I agree, but it isn't just those two FBI employees who are to blame. This failure was systematic. This investigation was mishandled from coast to coast, from Indianapolis to Los Angeles, and it has to leave us wondering whether the FBI is capable of these kinds of sexual abuse investigation. I'll close where I began. We wouldn't be here but for the tremendous courage of so many survivors and their unwavering demand for change. But there must be accountability for the individuals and institutions that enabled Larry Nassar. Anything else is unacceptable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. We will now hear from Senator Blackburn. I believe she's going to appear on the screen, and the last opening statement will be from Senator Moran. So, Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I so appreciate that we're having this hearing today and have the opportunity to hear firsthand from some of these athletes, and appreciate the work and the effort that the committee has put into a preparation for this. You know, over the past few years, we have seen scandal after scandal arise. They have come to light. They have exposed men who have abused their positions of power to take advantage of and harm women. These stories of abuse continue to be shocking every time that we hear them. And as a woman, we are inclined to listen more closely, to believe these stories, because we have seen this type behavior before. It is really hard to imagine a scandal, however, that comes as close to the depravity of Larry Nassar. The young athletes who are with us today trusted him, and he abused that trust, not once, but repeatedly. In the years since, Larry Nassar's evil has been outshone by the courage of these young women who have given strength to so many to go after what happened in these crimes. Many of these brave young women should be saluted, every one of them saluted, for the positions that they have taken to stand up, to tell their stories, and to go after justice for themselves and for fellow athletes. Now, as we have heard others of my colleagues say, it is shameful that the FBI was very slow to respond. It is shameful that the FBI, who is charged with investigating these horrific crimes and abuse, grossly failed to fulfill this duty. They sat idly by. They turned a blind eye. And Mr. Chairman, I think one of the things that we all want to hear is, why did they discount? Why did they devalue what they were hearing from these athletes? From the time this arose to them until action was taken by the university, by local police, and there was a dismissal of Larry Nassar, there were 70 more victims. And I will add, those are the victims that we know about, that have come to light. Every single person in authority who turned a blind eye to these young athletes' allegations is complicit in Nassar's crimes, and each one of them should be considered a predator. We cannot save future generations of women and girls from this kind of horrific abuse if we continue to settle for diplomatic resolutions. We owe it to these young women and to girls and women everywhere to figure out why their government failed them, why these institutions did not listen to them. And that process begins today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Blackburn. I'll ask as our final witness here, Senator Jerry Moran. Though he's not a member of this committee, he's been a real leader with Senator Blumenthal in oversight and legislation in response to this issue. Senator Moran.
Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Grassley, thank you for holding this hearing, most importantly, and thank you also for inviting me to speak before the committee today. I am grateful for your interest in this topic. I'd like to thank the survivors who will once again tell their stories. I express my respect for them today. McKayla Maroney, Maggie Nichols, Simone Biles, Aly Raisman, as well as all the survivors who are also, other survivors who are also joining us today, Jessica Howard, Jamie Dancer, Kaylee Lorenz. On January the 25th, 2018, as chairman of the Senate Commerce Subcommittee with jurisdiction over the health and safety of amateur athletes, Senator Blumenthal, my ranking member, and I opened an investigation into how USA Gymnastics, the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and Michigan State University allowed a monster to assault and abuse young women for decades. Early in our meeting with the survivors, one of them asked the question, and it has stuck with me since then. Since the very beginning of our investigation 3.5 years ago, and the question was, why was there more than one of us? I do not know how to answer that question. I do not know a human being that I would not expect to report if someone told them they were being abused, to report to law enforcement, to officials. And yet, time and time again, no one accepted that responsibility for these young women. Why was there more than one? And most recently, we learned even the Federal Bureau of Investigation belongs on the list of those who failed in their responsibility, allowing for there to be more than one, more than dozens. Over 18 months, we held 4 committee hearings, we conducted hundreds of interviews, and we reviewed over 70,000 pages of documents. This bipartisan effort culminated last fall in the passage of the Empower Olympic and Paralympic and Amateur Athlete Act, which strengthened legal liability and accountability mechanisms over the Olympic movement in the United States and worked to restore a culture that put athletes first. We know, we knew, we continue to know, our job is not done. We will continue working with athletes and survivors now to make certain that that law is effective in meeting its goals. And we are here today because of those athletes, those victims, those survivors, because of their advocacy and their courage. Together, we have demanded change and accountability from the institutions and individuals who covered up, enabled, and contributed to the abuse of young athletes. And as I said earlier, unfortunately, that list now includes the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Senator Blumenthal is correct. It's not just about these survivors. It's not just about gymnastics. It's not even necessarily about the Olympics. This challenge is pervasive in our country, in our society, in our culture, and the Chairman Durbin, indicated today an instance in his home state. All of us could find those, know those, and recognize that there is much more to be done. But during the course of our investigation, we uncovered evidence that the FBI received credible information of the dangers Nassar posed to athletes. Yet, the FBI did not appear to take any additional actions. Furthermore, we learned that while the agents in Indianapolis claimed to have sent information they gathered to the appropriate offices in Michigan, it wasn't until evidence collected by local authorities that evidence was turned over to the FBI in Lansing, Michigan, and that officials in Michigan then learned of Nassar's abuse. Subsequently, the OIG report in July confirmed this misconduct. The OIG report confirmed our suspicions. The FBI received explicit warnings about Larry Nassar's horrific abuse from a survivor years before the perpetrator was finally arrested. The FBI failed to protect our athletes. This inaction is appalling and, as we've all said, unacceptable. I remain committed to working with this committee, the Judiciary Committee, my colleagues in the Senate, and the survivors here today to protect and empower all athletes. As the ranking member of the Appropriations Subcommittee that oversees the Department of Justice, I will work to be certain the FBI agents are held accountable for their actions, that it is never repeated. I look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, in that regard, and I know Senator Sheen, the now chairperson of our Appropriations Subcommittee, would join us in that effort. Our goal should remain the same, to hold accountable those for these crimes and to make certain future generations can train, can compete, and can succeed without fear of abuse. I appreciate Inspector Horwitz and his report, his thoroughness. I thank Senator Blumenthal for his partnership in our subcommittees, 3.5 and now continuing efforts. And I particularly thank the Senate Judiciary Committee for allowing me to speak today. This is something we must not forget, and all of us need to be able to answer why was there more than one. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thanks, Senator Moran, for your testimony and good work on this issue. We are now going to transition into the first panel, and I ask the staff to do their good work, and if you can just hold for a minute. Go ahead. We'll now turn to our panel of witnesses, and I invite them to come forward and be seated. Though they probably need no introduction, they're so well known across this nation, I do want to say a few words about some amazing young women who've come to speak to us today. Our first panel has 4 witnesses who are members and former members of USA Gymnastics. They are Olympians and national and international gymnastic champions, and each of them is also a survivor. In alphabetical order, our first witness, Simone Biles, one of the greatest gymnasts of all time. She is the first woman to capture 5 all-around world championship titles and the most decorated gymnast, male or female, in world championships history, 25 medals overall. She is a 7-time Olympic medalist. Her extraordinary accomplishments have received widespread recognition, including 2 Associated Press Female Athlete of the Year awards. McKayla Maroney was a member of the American women's gymnastics team dubbed the Fierce Five at the 2012 Summer Olympics. She won a gold medal in team competition and an individual silver medal in the vault. She was also a member of the American team at the 2011 World Championships, where she won gold medals in the team and vault competitions, and the 2013 World Championships, where she defended her vault title. And we frequently see her on TV jumping on a roof. Our next witness, Maggie Nichols, led the University of Oklahoma women's gymnastics team to team national championships in 2017 and 2019, also winning 6 individual titles. She represented the United States at the 2015 World Championships, where she won a gold medal in team competition and a bronze medal on floor exercise. She also holds several USA Gymnastics National Championship medals. Finally, Aly Raisman, one of the most accomplished American gymnasts of all time, 2-time Olympian, team captain of the 2012 and 2016 women's gymnastics team, captured 6 Olympic and 4 World Championship medals, including an individual silver medal in the 2016 Olympic all-around and gold medals in team competition in 2012 and 2016. A leader on and off the floor, Raisman uses her platform to advocate for abuse prevention and education. I thank you each for being here. Let me lay out the mechanics of the rest of this hearing. After we swear in the witnesses on the first panel, which is the tradition of this committee, each witness will have 5 minutes to provide their opening statements. There will then be 1 round of questions, and this is extraordinary procedure. Each senator will have 1 minute of questioning, so please honor your allotted time to ask a question. Following that, we will switch to our second panel. We'll once again have 5-minute opening statements from the witnesses. After opening statements, we'll have another round of question. Each senator will have 5 minutes for a question. Could the witnesses please stand to be sworn in? If you'd raise your right hand, do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that the witnesses answered in the affirmative. Be seated. Ms. Biles, you're first, if you'd like to give your opening statement.
Did I? Oh, it's on. Sorry.
If you'll pull the microphone close to you, it works much better.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my story with this committee and for bringing light to the crisis of abuse in amateur sports. Your commitment to ensuring the safety of gymnasts and all amateur athletes is appreciated, important, and necessary to ensure nothing like this ever happens again. Please bear with me. To be perfectly honest, I can imagine no place that I would be less comfortable right now than sitting here in front of you, sharing these comments. My name is Simone Biles, and I am a gymnast who has trained at the levels of the sport. As an elite gymnast, I have had the honor to represent the United States of America in multiple international competitions, including World Championships and the Olympic Games. Over the course of my gymnastics career, I have won 25 World Championship medals and 7 Olympic medals for Team USA. That record means so much to me, and I am proud of my representation of this nation through gymnastics. I am also a survivor of sexual abuse, and I believe without a doubt that the circumstances that led to my abuse and allowed it to continue are directly the result of the fact that the organizations created by Congress to oversee and protect me as an athlete USA Gymnastics, and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee failed to do their jobs. Nelson Mandela once said, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. It is the power of that statement that compels and empowers me to be here in front of you today. I don't want another young gymnast, Olympic athlete, or any individual to experience the horror that I and hundreds of others have endured before, during, and continuing to this day in the wake of the Larry Nassar abuse. To be clear,
Take your time.
To be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse. USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee knew that I was abused by their official team doctor long before I was ever made aware of their knowledge. In May of 2015, Rhonda Fayen, the former head of USA Gymnastics women's program, was told by my friend and teammate, Maggie Nichols, that she suspected I, too, was a victim. I didn't understand the magnitude of what all was happening until the Indianapolis Star published its article in the fall of 2016, entitled, Former USA Gymnastics Doctor Accused of Abuse. Yet while I was a member of the 2016 U.S. Olympic team, neither USAG, USOPC, nor the FBI ever contacted me or my parents. While others had been informed and investigations were ongoing, I had been left to wonder why I was not told until after the Rio Games. This is the largest case of sexual abuse in the history of American sport. And although there have been a fully independent investigation of the FBI's handling of the case, neither USAG nor USOPC have ever been made the subject of the same level of scrutiny. These are the entities entrusted with the protection of our sport and our athletes, and yet it feels like questions of responsibility and organizational failures remain unanswered. As you pursue the answers to those questions, I ask that your work be guided by the same question that Rachel Denhollander and many others have asked: how much is a little girl worth? I sit before you today to raise my voice so that no little girl must endure what I, the athletes at this table, and the countless others who needlessly suffered under Nassar's guise of medical treatment, which we continue to endure today. We suffered and continue to suffer because no one at FBI, USAG, or the USOPC did what was necessary to protect us. We have been failed, and we deserve answers. Nassar is where he belongs, but those who enabled him deserve to be held accountable. If they are not, I am convinced that this will continue to happen to others across Olympic sports. In reviewing the OIG's report, it truly feels like the FBI turned a blind eye to us and went out of its way to help protect USAG and USOPC. A message needs to be sent. If you allow a predator to harm children, the consequences will be swift and severe. Enough is enough. I will close with one final thought. The scars of this horrific abuse continue to live with all of us. As the lone competitor in the recent Tokyo Games who is a survivor of this horror, I can assure you that the impacts of this man's abuse are not ever over or forgotten. The announcement in the spring of 2020 that the Tokyo Games were to be postponed for a year meant that I would be going to the gym, to training, to therapy, living daily among the reminders of this story for another 365 days. As I have stated in the past, one thing that helped me push each and every day was the goal of not allowing this crisis to be ignored. I worked incredibly hard to make sure that my presence could maintain a connection between the failures and the competition at Tokyo 2020. That has proven to be an exceptionally difficult burden for me to carry, particularly when required to travel to Tokyo without the support of any of my family. I am a strong individual and I will persevere, but I never should have been left alone to suffer the abuse of Larry Nassar. And the only reason I did was because of the failures that lie at the heart of the abuse that you are now asked to investigate. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with this committee today. I want to sincerely thank each of you for joining the survivors of this abuse to do what we all can to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Biles. Ms. Maroney? You have to push the button on your microphone. Slide.
Are we on?
There we
All
are.
right. Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, and members of the Judiciary Committee for inviting me to speak today. As most of you are probably aware, I was molested by the U.S. Gymnastics national team and Olympic team doctor, Larry Nassar. And in actuality, he turned out to be more of a pedophile than he was a doctor. What I'm trying to bring to your attention today is something incredibly disturbing and illegal. After telling my entire story of abuse to the FBI in the summer of 2015, not only did the FBI not report my abuse, but when they eventually documented my report 17 months later, they made entirely false claims about what I said. After reading the Office of Inspector General's OIG report, I was shocked and deeply disappointed at this narrative they chose to fabricate. They chose to lie about what I said and protect a serial child molester rather than protect not only me, but countless others. My story is one in which Special Agent in Charge Jay Abbott and his subordinates did not want you to hear, and it's time that I tell you. In the summer of 2015, like I said, I was scheduled to speak to the FBI about my abuse with Larry Nassar over the phone. I was too sick to go meet with anyone in person, and talking about this abuse would give me PTSD for days. But I chose to speak about it to try and make a difference and protect others. I remember sitting on my bedroom floor for nearly 3 hours as I told them what happened to me. I hadn't even told my own mother about these facts, but I thought, as uncomfortable and as hard as it was to tell my story, I was going to make a difference, and hopefully protecting others from the same abuse. I answered all of their questions honestly and clearly, and I disclosed all of my molestations I had endured by Nassar to them in extreme detail. They told me to start from the beginning. I told them about the sport of gymnastics, how you make the national team, and how I came to meet Larry Nassar when I was 13 at a Texas camp. I told him that the first thing Larry Nassar ever said to me was to change into shorts with no underwear because that would make it easier for him to work on me. And within minutes, he had his fingers in my vagina. The FBI then immediately asked, "Did he insert his fingers into your rectum?" I said, "No, he never did." They asked if he used gloves. I said, "No, he never did." They asked if this treatment ever helped me. I said, "No, it never did." This treatment was 100% abuse and never gave me any relief. I then told the FBI about Tokyo, the day he gave me a sleeping pill for the plane ride, to then work on me later that night. That evening, I was naked, completely alone, with him on top of me, molesting me for hours. I told them I thought I was going to die that night because there was no way that he would let me go. But he did. I told them I walked the halls of Tokyo Hotel at 2 a.m. at only 15 years old. I began crying at the memory over the phone, and there was just dead silence. I was so shocked at the agent's silence and disregard for my trauma. After that minute of silence, he asked, "Is that all?" Those words in itself was one of the worst moments of this entire process for me. To have my abuse be minimized and disregarded by the people who were supposed to protect me, just to feel like my abuse was not enough. But the truth is, my abuse was enough, and they wanted to cover it up. USA Gymnastics, in concert with the FBI and the Olympic Committee, were working together to conceal that Larry Nassar was a predator. I then proceeded to tell them about London, and how he'd sign me up last on his sheet so he could molest me for hours twice a day. I told them how he molested me right before I won my team gold medal, how he gave me presents, bought me caramel macchiatos and bread when I was hungry. I even sent them screenshots of Nassar's last text to me, which was, "McKayla, I love how you see the world with rose-colored glasses. I hope you continue to do so." This was very clear, cookie-cutter pedophilia and abuse. And this is important because I told the FBI all of this, and they chose to falsify my report and to not only minimize my abuse, but silence me yet again. I thought, given the severity of this situation, that they would act quickly for the sake of protecting other girls. But instead, it took them 14 months to report anything, when Larry Nassar, in my opinion, should have been in jail that day. The FBI, USOC, and USAG sat idly by as dozens of girls and women continued to be molested by Larry Nassar. According to the OIG report, about 14 months after I disclosed my abuse to the FBI, nearly a year and a half later, the FBI agent who interviewed me in 2015 decided to write down my statement, a statement that the OIG report determined to be materially false. Let's be honest. By not taking immediate action from my report, they allowed a child molester to go free for more than a year. And this inaction directly allowed Nassar's abuse to continue. What is the point of reporting abuse if our own FBI agents are going to take it upon themselves to bury that report in a drawer? They had legal, legitimate evidence of child abuse and did nothing. If they're not going to protect me, I want to know, who are they trying to protect? What's even more upsetting to me is that we know that these FBI agents have committed an obvious crime. They falsified my statement, and that is illegal in itself. Yet no recourse has been taken against them. The Department of Justice refused to prosecute these individuals. Why? Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco couldn't even bring herself to be here today, and it is the Department of Justice's job to hold them accountable. I am tired of waiting for people to do the right thing, because my abuse was enough, and we deserve justice. These individuals clearly violated policies and were negligent in executing their duties, and in doing so, more girls were abused by Larry Nassar for over a year. To not indict these agents is a disservice to me and my teammates. It is a disservice to the system, which was built to protect all of us from abuse. It was a disservice to every victim who suffered needlessly at the hands of Larry Nassar after I spoke up. Why are public servants whose job is to protect getting away with this? This is not justice. Enough is enough. Today, I ask you all to hear my voice. I ask you, please do all that is in your power to ensure that these individuals are held responsible and accountable for ignoring my initial report, for lying about my initial report, and for covering up for a child molester. In closing, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the United States Senate, a very powerful institution that from the very beginning has fought for us rather than against us. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Maroney. Ms. Nichols?
Chair Durbin, Ranking Member Grassley, and distinguished members of the Judiciary Committee, thank you for inviting me to speak to you today, and I want to personally thank you for your commitments to prioritizing athlete safety and holding accountable those responsible for athlete safety. I was named as Gymnast 2 in the Office of Inspector General's report and previously identified as Athlete A by USA Gymnastics. I want everyone to know that this did not happen to Gymnast 2 or to Athlete A. It happened to me, Maggie Nichols. I first started gymnastics when I was 3, and since I was a child, I always had a dream of competing for my country in the World Championships and Olympic Games. I was an elite level gymnast by the age of 13, and by the time I was 14, I made the national team. I traveled internationally for 4 years, attending competitions, and in 2015 at the World Championships, representing our country, where I won a gold medal. My Olympic dreams ended in the summer of 2015 when my coach and I reported Larry Nassar's abuse to USAG leadership. I went on to compete at the University of Oklahoma, where I was named first-team All-American in the all-around and all 4 events and was an 8-time national champion. I reported my abuse to USA Gymnastics over 6 years ago. And still, my family and I received few answers, and have even more questions about how this was allowed to occur and why dozens of other little girls and women at Michigan State had to be abused after I reported. In sacrificing my childhood for the chance to compete for the United States, I am haunted by the fact that even after I reported my abuse, so many women and girls had to suffer at the hands of Larry Nassar. USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee and the FBI have all betrayed me and those who were abused by Larry Nassar after I reported. The cover-up of my abuse and the FBI's failure to interview me for more than a year after my complaint are well documented in the OIG report. After I reported my abuse to USA Gymnastics, my family and I were told by their former president, Steve Penny, to keep quiet and not say anything that could hurt the FBI investigation. We now know there was no real FBI investigation occurring. While my complaints with the FBI, Larry Nassar continued to abuse women and girls. During this time, the FBI issued no search warrants and made no arrests. From the day I reported my molestation by Nassar, I was treated differently by USAG. Not only did the FBI fail to conduct a thorough investigation, but they also knew that USAG and the USOPC created a false narrative where Larry Nassar was allowed to retire, with his reputation intact, and return to Michigan State University, thus allowing dozens of little girls to be molested. As the Inspector General's report details, during this time period, FBI agents did not properly document evidence, failed to report to proper authorities, and the special agent in charge was seeking to become the new director of security for the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, a job opportunity raised by Steve Penny. Afterwards, FBI agents in charge of the investigation lied to OIG investigators about what had happened. This conduct by these FBI agents, including the special agent in charge, who are held in high regard and expected to protect the public, is unacceptable, disgusting, and shameful. This committee produced a report in 2019 titled "The Courage of Survivors, a Call to Action." It found that the U.S. Olympic Committee and USAG and the national governing body designated by USOC and administer amateur gymnastics failed to adequately respond to credible allegations against Nassar. Similarly, the OIG report found that senior FBI officials lied to the Inspector General, engaged in serious conflicts of interest, and tried to cover up one of the biggest child sexual abuse scandals in the history of amateur sports. Both reports uncovered serious and possibly criminal misconduct by those at the highest level of the Olympic Committee, our sport, and the FBI. Despite these findings of serious and criminal misconduct throughout the FBI, USAG, and USOPC, no accountability has occurred. An important question remains, perhaps the most important question: why? Why would the FBI agents lie to OIG investigators? Why would the FBI not properly document evidence that was received? Why would the FBI agent be interested in the USAG presidency? These questions remain unanswered. And the survivors of Larry Nassar have a right to know why their well-being was placed in jeopardy by these individuals who chose not to do their jobs. To date, no one from the FBI, the USOPC, or USAG has faced federal charges other than Larry Nassar. For many hundreds of survivors of Larry Nassar, this hearing is one of our last opportunities to get justice. We ask that you do what is in your power to ensure those that engaged in wrongdoing are held accountable under the law.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Ms. Raisman.
I want to begin by thanking the Judiciary Committee, including Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Grassley, for their commitment to seeking the truth for the hundreds, if not thousands, who were systematically abused by Larry Nassar, and for this committee's diligence to demand accountability regarding federal law enforcement's misconduct. I also want to express my gratitude to the other brave survivors here today, my friends and my teammates, for sharing their stories and continuing to press for justice and reform. Over the past few years, it has become painfully clear how a survivor's healing is affected by the handling of their abuse. And it disgusts me that we are still fighting for the most basic answers and accountability over 6 years later. In 2015, it was known that at least 6 national team athletes had been abused by Nassar. There was even one of the athletes that was abused on film. Given our abuser's unfettered access to children, stopping him should have been a priority. Instead, the following occurred. The FBI failed to interview pertinent parties in a timely manner. It took over 14 months for the FBI to contact me, despite my many requests to be interviewed by them. The records established that Steve Penny, FBI agent Jay Abbott, and their subordinates worked to conceal Nassar's crimes. Steve Penny arranged with the FBI to conduct my interview at the Olympic Training Center, where I was under the control and observation of USA Gymnastics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. The day of my interview, Steve Penny flew to the Olympic Training Center, and he made sure I was aware he was there. I felt pressured by the FBI to consent to Nassar's plea deal. The agent diminished the significance of my abuse and made me feel my criminal case wasn't worth pursuing. Special agent in charge of investigating Nassar met Steve Penny for beers to discuss job opportunities in the Olympic movement. Another FBI agent worked with Steve Penny to determine jurisdiction without interviewing the survivors. I've watched multiple high-ranking officials at USAG, USOPC, and FBI resign or retire without explanation of how they may have contributed to the problem, some of whom were publicly thanked for their service and rewarded with severance or bonus money. My reports of abuse were not only buried by USAG, USOPC, but they were also mishandled by federal law enforcement officers who failed to follow their most basic duties. The FBI and others within both USAG and USOPC knew that Nassar molested children and did nothing to restrict his access. Steve Penny and any USAG employee could have walked a few steps to file a report with the Indiana Child Protective Services since they shared the same building. Instead, they quietly allowed Nassar to slip out the side door, knowingly allowing him to continue his work at MSU, Sparrow Hospital, a USAG club, and even run for school board. Nassar found more than 100 new victims to molest. It was like serving innocent children up to a pedophile on a silver platter. Why did none of these organizations warn anyone? USAG and USOPC have a long history of enabling abuse by turning a blind eye. Both organizations knew of Nassar's abuse long before it became public, although you wouldn't know that by reading their press releases, which would have you and their corporate sponsors believe that athlete safety comes first. We have called for a fully independent, factual investigation for years now, because I and these women who sit before you know firsthand these organizations and their public statements are not to be trusted. They claim they want accountability, but then seek to restrict which staff can be interviewed, which documents can be examined, and claim attorney-client privilege over and over again. The so-called investigations these organizations orchestrated were not designed to provide the answers we so critically need. Why are we left to guess why USAG and USOPC deliberately ignored reported abuse? Was it to protect the value of the sponsorships? The LA 28 bid? Their own jobs? To avoid criminal liability? Perhaps. But why must we speculate when the facts are obtainable and the stakes are so high? Why would duly sworn federal law enforcement officers ignore reports of abuse by a doctor across state lines and country borders? For a future job opportunity? Or were there additional incentives and pressures? Why must we speculate when the facts are obtainable and the stakes are so high? Just as it is naive to assume the problem only rests with Nassar, it is unrealistic to think we can grasp the full extent of culpability without understanding how and why USAG and USOPC chose to ignore abuse for decades, and why the interplay among these three organizations led the FBI to willingly disregard our reports of abuse. Without knowing who knew what when, we cannot identify all enablers or determine whether they are still in positions of power. We just can't fix a problem we don't understand. And we can't understand the problem unless and until we have all of the facts. If we don't do all we can to get these facts, the problems we are here to address will persist, and we are deluding ourselves if we think other children can be spared the institutionalized tolerance and normalization of abuse that I and so many others had to endure. I thank you for your time, your commitment, and your genuine concern for those survivors who relied on the FBI to do the right thing. I welcome any questions and comments, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raisman. I've been in a lot of committee hearings. I can't remember compelling testimony like we've heard this morning ever before, because you had the courage to come up and tell the world what happened to you. It is heartbreaking to think what you have been through. I thank you for being here. We have a job to do, and we know it. It begins with this hearing, the accountability of the FBI and the Department of Justice and all of law enforcement when it comes to abuse cases such as those that you have endured personally. But there's an historic element here in that your audience includes young people like yourself who are victims and survivors themselves. I have 1 minute in question, and my question basically to the panel, anyone who cares to respond. What would you say to other young athletes who may be suffering in silence or wrestling with the decision about whether to speak out? Ms. Raisman?
The first thing that I would want to say to anybody that's watching this that's suffering in silence or has been through something really traumatic is that I support them, I believe them, and just be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, know that I'm struggling too, I'm still navigating how to heal from this, and healing is a roller coaster. There are some days I feel better, some days I feel like I'm taking a bunch of steps backwards, and that's okay. We're all human, we're all doing the best that we can, but I would encourage whoever is out there that's listening to tell someone whenever they feel comfortable, and it's so important to have a good support system and a community around you. And if you're someone out there that doesn't have a good support system, that's okay. Sometimes it can take some time to find a good support system, so I encourage you to not give up until you find that support that you deserve. And just remember that I believe you, I support you, you are not alone, and I encourage you to ask for help.
Anyone else on the panel?
Yeah, I would just want to say that they need to know that their abuse is enough. I think for so long, all of us questioned, just because somebody else wasn't fully validating us, that we doubted what happened to us. And that is always going to make the healing process take longer. I think the second that I gave that to myself is when I really began to heal and when I really began to get my voice back. And that took a long time. And I think to reach out to other survivors and to speak to them and hear their stories is what continues to help me heal. And hearing all these girls speak is really what continues to make me want to be here today and help others.
And you are.
Thank you.
Senator Grassley?
Before I ask my first question, in regard to something Ms. Raisman raised. We have not forgotten why these people haven't been prosecuted. So I want to put in the record a letter that I wrote the Attorney General on July 16th to request that the Justice Department revisit its decision not to prosecute the FBI employees who failed you, all of you, and a lot of you that aren't here as well.
Without objection.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, it's not enough just to commend you for your bravery of speaking out, but by your speaking out, you're helping not only young women, but wherever there might be the abuse that you talk about. And it's very difficult, I'm sure, in this public setting for you to speak that, and we felt that from you speaking out about it. It's got to be a hard job, but thank you for coming forward. So I'm going to ask questions of any one of you or all of you. You decide how you want to respond to this, but I hope at least one person would speak up. What can you tell Congress and the government witnesses testifying here today about the additional steps, if any, that we should take to ensure that we better protect child athletes? And we heard from all of you about the agents and the FBI not doing its job or even lying to us. And you heard about a bill that I am proposing. But beyond those things, do you have anything you'd like to add that Congress should hear from you to protect child athletes?
I think it's really important to look at the connection between the FBI, USA Gymnastics, and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And we cannot believe that there's a safer future for children unless we fully understand every single thing that happened. And USA Gymnastics does say that they've done investigations, but those were not completely independent, and the scope of the investigation matters. Nobody should be off limits. Nothing should be off limits. It should go back decades, and that has not been done, and it's been something that we've been asking for years and years. And so I personally would like to see all three organizations completely investigated, and the scope of it matters, because until we know all the facts, it's just guesswork. And I hope you guys feel the same way about, as I do, that if we're thinking about children going into gymnastics or sports, I don't want to be guessing that they're going to be okay. I want to know with 100% certainty that somebody that looked the other way for us isn't still in a position of power. And so I think the investigation is crucial, and until that, I don't have any faith that things will get better in the sport.
Okay, if no one else wants to go beyond that, I'll go to my last question. I hope this isn't something so sensitive you don't feel you can talk about it, but do you have any thoughts or inputs to share about Safe Sport, the national nonprofit entity that has been tasked by Congress with handling allegations from amateur athletes?
Yeah, I personally think Safe Sport is, I'm trying to be respectful here. I don't like Safe Sport. I hear from many survivors that they report their abuse, and it's like playing hot potato where someone else kicks it over to somebody else and they don't hear back for a really long time. I think a really big issue is that Safe Sport is funded by USA Gymnastics or the United States Olympic Committee. I'm not sure exactly what the correct terminology is, but if you're Safe Sport and you are funded by the organization you're investigating, they're likely not going to do the right thing. And so I think that it needs to be completely separate. And I personally think Safe Sport needs a lot of work. And I know from many survivors, and my mom has personally reported things to Safe Sport, and we've followed up so many times. They say we can't help you, or they either ignore us or pass it on to somebody else, and the person they pass it on to says they kick it back to them. It's just a complete mess, and the priority doesn't seem to be safety and well-being of athletes. It seems to be protecting USA Gymnastics and doing everything to keep the PR good.
Yeah, I agree. Nobody really wants to be held accountable, and nobody really knows who to hold accountable. So I think in order to help, there needs to be a specific person who is in charge of protecting these athletes, and it falls on them when they're not. And instead of it being passed around and everyone just being like, oh, we don't know what happened, whose job was that, there needs to be a specific job for that.
Thank you. Now call on Senator Leahy and remind my colleagues we're trying to make this question period concise, so please do your best.
I want to thank you all for having the courage to come here today. I can only imagine how painful it is to relive these experiences, but I think that the resilience, the perseverance you're showing the world today is incredibly admirable. And I hope that young survivors who see this, who feel powerless to tell their stories, will feel, yes, here's an example, they should tell it. But I think it has to be far more than just telling the stories. I mean, obviously, like Senator Durbin, I've been on this committee for a long time, and I cannot think of anything so moving. And we're going to hear senators and others talk about accountability and justice today. But what does genuine accountability look like to you? When do you feel justice will be done for the injustices you suffered? That really should be the question we have today. And I'd like to hear from all of you on that. When do you feel justice will be done? And what does genuine accountability look like?
You want to try that one?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, going back to, I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm going to try. Hopefully today will be the one that this time I say it, it actually happens. But for me, accountability looks like, first of all, I think that obviously this should have never happened. One time being abused is too many, one child being abused is too many. But I think a complete and full independent investigation of the FBI, USA Gymnastics, and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And then from there, then we will know the answers of who should be held accountable. I also think that there needs to be, when we think about a new USA Gymnastics or a new United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, survivors need to be in the room. They need to be able to be, we need to feel like we are not adversaries to USA Gymnastics, and we need to feel like our voices matter, that they care, that they want to actually be a part of the change that we so desperately want. I think that it's, I'm not trying to speak for them, but I imagine we all feel that it is crazy for me to try to wrap my head around. All we are asking for is that when a child goes into gymnastics or goes to school or does anything, that they can be spared abuse. And the fact that we've been treated like adversaries by so many organizations and our abuse has been diminished. We've been victim shamed online over and over again. We've been gaslit. We've been made to feel that we don't matter, and by these organizations, and I never want another child to feel that way again. And McKayla Maroney mentioned this. So often survivors already question themselves. They distrust how they feel. And that is something that I went through, and especially because the FBI made me feel like my abuse didn't count and it wasn't a big deal. And I remember sitting there with the FBI agent and him trying to convince me that it wasn't that bad. And it's taken me years of therapy to realize that my abuse was bad, that it does matter. And so I think it's really important to also have education and prevention in the sport as well. I don't see these organizations doing enough to have every single staff member, every single athlete, every single parent, guardian, every single person that walks into a gym, I believe, should be educated to prevent and recognize emotional, physical, sexual mental abuse, everything in between, because if we don't have an investigation and we don't have education and prevention, then this problem and this nightmare is going to keep happening over and over again.
Anybody else care to? Or should I assume you all agree with that, right?
Yes.
So do I. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Senator Leahy. Senator Cornyn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say
Oh, okay.
That we
Sorry,
thank-
just one more to add. We also want to see
Excuse me.
them at least be federally prosecuted to the fullest extent because they need to be held accountable.
Thank you.
As a former prosecutor, I agree with that. Thank you.
Senator Cornyn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to thank these 4 survivors who are joining us today, and I want to tell you how much I respect and admire your courage and for sounding the alarm on a system that has abused and neglected you, but was supposed to protect you. Your stories are difficult for you to tell, I know, and but it's extraordinarily important for us to hear it, as hard as it is for you and for us to hear. Because I believe that your courage will inspire a generation of women to speak out against those who've abused them. And I want you to know, we all want you to know, we're very proud of your courage and the example that you've set for other young women. And I sincerely hope that your courage in speaking out will be a step toward righting the wrongs that have led to these injustices, so we can ensure that these mistakes will never, ever be repeated. So thank you for shining a light on this issue and for advocating for victims across the country. As you know, you are not alone. Because too often, those allegations are downplayed, slow-walked, or ignored. So now our job is to make sure that your sacrifices, your trauma, and your nightmare have not been in vain. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Cornyn. Senator Feinstein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for me, this was a deja vu. I listened to these young women. I saw their courage. I saw their willingness to step forward. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to take some action. I would like to present a letter that's sent to the Chief Executive Officer of the United States Center for Safe Sport, which has 8 specific things. This is on behalf of Senator Murray and myself. So if I may put that in.
Without objection.
And I really hope that no one ever goes through the horrors that you have experienced. And I hope that when, and I believe we will take action, that this is enough for you to put this behind you in your life, and that you can lead a life that is just as full and happy as is possible, and that we do our job and see that we prevent this from ever happening again. So I just want to thank you so much. I've had the occasion to sit down with you, at least 2 of you, around my conference table and see the tears. And those days are now behind. And I'm convinced that this Senate will act. And I thank you so much because you have played a big role, if and when we do, in making it happen. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Feinstein. Senator Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank each of you for being here. Being here this morning was not easy. Each of you inspire millions across the globe. Millions look to your athletic achievements. You have all stood on the biggest stages in the world and done extraordinary things, things that take your breath away, that amaze children and adults. And you We're able to do that through tens of thousands of hours of incredible hard work. And yet that work pales compared to the courage it took to come here today and to tell your story publicly. You could have stayed silent. You could have avoided the scrutiny, the pain, and I will say, watching you testify this morning, you could see the pain in each of you sharing that story. But that courage that you've demonstrated by going public, by reporting this abuse, by shining a light, that courage matters, and it's making a difference in the lives of others. The system failed you. What happened to you was grotesque, it was criminal, it was abusive, it was evil. I'm the father of two little girls who are both athletes, not at the level of each of you, but what you experience is every parent's nightmare. That when you entrust your child to coaches or doctors or trainers, you're trusting that your kids will be taken care of, not that they will be abused and targeted. And so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for calling out the abuse, calling out the system that failed you, and that system needs to change. That system needs to be held accountable so that this doesn't happen again. I want to thank you for the kids that won't face abuse because of your courage, and each of you, Aly, Maggie, McKayla, Simone, and I'll say, Simone, you're a Texan and a Houstonian. The entire state of Texas is immensely proud of you and proud of all of you. And I got to say, right now at home, there's a little girl or a little boy who's watching this, who may be facing their own personal hell, may be facing abuse, whether in sports or in some other context, a monster who is doing unspeakable things to them. And that little girl, that little boy, I hope, sees your courage and realizes that she can come forward and say something too, that he can call out the person who's hurting them. So thank you for your courage. It makes an enormous difference.
Thanks, Senator Cruz. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin. I want to first thank our colleague, Senator Blumenthal, who has been so persistent in this for so long, and thank you and the ranking member, Senator Grassley, for holding this hearing. I want to compliment all of our witnesses for the stunning clarity and grace of your testimony here. Your quest for accountability is 100% justified, and thank you for pursuing it. We will endeavor to help you in that pursuit. It is astonishing and disturbing how many adults let you down and failed at one of the most basic responsibilities of adulthood, which is to look out for children, take care of them, behave properly, and hear and trust them. So I guess on behalf of adults everywhere, we owe you an apology. But what you've done today is impressive, and it will make a difference, and I'm grateful to you for stepping up the way you have.
Thanks, Senator Whitehouse. Senator Hawley is on via WebEx, and you'll see him on the screen momentarily. I hope. Senator Hawley? Well, perhaps Senator Cotton is on virtually. We're going to search the ether for Senator Cotton? Well, in their absence, Senator Klobuchar.
Excellent. Thank you very much, all of you. And like my colleagues, I want to express my gratitude to you. As a fellow Minnesotan, I am particularly grateful to you, Maggie, for sharing your story with the committee today. All of you and the other women and girls who make up the gymnastics community continue to inspire us. I was one of the geeks that was up at 4 a.m. Watching this live, watching the Olympics live this time. And to think when you fall off the balance beams and you get back on, or you grab those bars when you still have an injury, or you perform some floor exercise that no one knows was possible. To all of us that are watching, to us that is the courage, something we could never imagine doing. But the real courage is what you're doing today. Your bravery is on full display. And as a former prosecutor, like some of my colleagues, I know firsthand, I've seen it, how hard it is to testify before a room of strangers. And this time you're doing it in front of the U.S. Senate. And what you're doing is, of course, part of your own healing, but it is also part of healing for kids you're never going to meet, little girls and boys that maybe are aware of your fame and what you've done. They may not ever be aware of what you are doing today. And I think you have heard it from so many of my colleagues that have been leading on these bills, and I've been proud to co-sponsor them. But more must be done, more oversight, more accountability. By coming forward today, you are going to make that difference, so we can make sure on your behalf that this never happens again. Thank you, Simone, McKayla, Maggie, and Aly, for representing the women and girls of USA Gymnastics so well on the world stage, but most importantly, so well today. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Klobuchar. We're going to try one more time with Senator Cotton. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I want to also take a moment to thank each of the witnesses who are appearing this morning. The four of you have done remarkable things in your lives. You've been patriotic competitors, dedicated athletes, good role models, and you've represented the United States of America expertly on the global stage. But perhaps even more impressive is the courage that each of you has displayed in coming forward about the abuse you faced. And in doing so, you weren't just taking on one terrible abuser, but potentially facing down an entire system. This isn't the first time that we've had hearings on this issue. In 2017, 2018, for example, the Senate heard from others who had faced similar abuse, including Jordan Weaver, who was a teammate to several of you and is now the head coach of University of Arkansas Gymnastics, and of whom we're also extremely proud. Unfortunately, for too long, the system failed the very women that it was supposed to protect. The report by Inspector General Horowitz makes clear that there are individuals whose inaction, incompetence, and worse enable that system and who should be held accountable. So I look forward to hearing from Director Wray and the Inspector General about how that will be remedied. And I once again thank each of you for coming before the committee and sharing your stories today.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin. Ranking Member Grassley, thank you for holding this hearing. Each of you are adults now. You are grown women. You've demonstrated your strength, your determination, your persistence in testifying here today. But as we all know, in terrible detail, you were victimized as young girls, and we have failed you. United States Olympic Committee, USA Gymnastics, those in federal law enforcement who were responsible for taking your horrible testimony and translating it into prompt and decisive action to protect other children and to secure justice for you. Thank you for the courage it takes to testify and to insist on justice. Thank you to Senator Blumenthal and Senator Moran for your persistent and effective engagement in this. We will next turn to hearing the Director of the FBI and the Inspector General about what has been found by the Inspector General and what action will be taken next. I just want to briefly share with you one of the most concerning parts of what you shared with us today was about your initial interviews with the FBI. Where it was conducted, how it was conducted, that you were left alone as a teenage girl to have an interview by phone with an FBI agent who somehow suggested what you were testifying to wasn't horrific, or tried to persuade you that it wasn't that bad, or under a circumstance that made it clear to you that the person responsible for USA Gymnastics might be present and might have somehow compromised that interview. The whole way in which all of your interviews were conducted was just awful. Now, sadly, that's been the experience for millions of victims of child sexual abuse over decades in the United States. And the positive thing I just wanted to share with you today is that for years now, there has been a national network of child advocacy centers. There's one in each county in my state, which brings together trauma-informed child welfare professionals and law enforcement to make sure that victims are only interviewed once, that they're interviewed in appropriate settings, that they're interviewed in a way that respects and recognizes the trauma and the abuse they've suffered, and that ensures that your horrible experiences in terms of those initial interviews, and it's been compounded by your having to testify and speak again and again. We are working on that system. Senator Blunt and I will soon reintroduce a bill that will reauthorize this and double the funding for it. There's now a national network of 880 of these child advocacy centers all over the country. So I just wanted to share with you and with any victim of abuse or the families who know about their child's abuse who might be watching, that what happened to you should not and need not happen again. There are professional, trauma-informed, child welfare-centered opportunities around the country to seek justice. And Ms. Maroney, I can see what I've just said has particularly impacted you. Thank you, all four of you, for your courage, your persistence, and your demands for justice. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Coons. I believe Senator Blumenthal will be next.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. My thanks again. You are really heroes and stars and role models for many young men and women around the country. And your courage, obviously, is impressive to all of us on this committee, but so is your grace and daring, your athleticism, your grace and daring as people, and your determination not to be defined by the abuse that you suffered and to seek help, which should be also a model to others. A number of you have made reference to the therapy that you have sought, which also takes courage. But you have been involved in a sport that often involves injuries, physical injuries, and the abuse you suffered involves emotional injuries that you are seeking to treat as you would any physical injury. I would like to ask you, I know at least one of the athletes in the room was abused after July 2015. Let me just ask each of you, you can answer yes or no, whether you know of athletes that were abused by Larry Nassar after July 2015 during the 18-month period when the FBI did nothing. You can just say, yes, you do. If you want to tell me how many, if you know. If not, just yes or no. Ms. Biles?
Yes. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Aly Raisman is here today, and she was abused after I spoke out.
Yes.
Yes, I've met many of them. And I also just want to be clear that in the time that I had reported my abuse to USA Gymnastics, I followed up many, many times. My mom would follow up for me a lot of the time because I'm sure, as you can imagine, it was so hard for me, but also I was so scared because of the positions of power. And we followed up so many times, and we were constantly told that they were working on it. The most important thing was to keep it confidential, not to tell anyone. They even told me not really to talk about it with McKayla Maroney, give her breathing room. And so I thought that it was being handled, and so I can't express to you when you're told by the president of USA Gymnastics at the time, Steve Penny, that they're handling it, they got it. I didn't know they were going to mishandle it and cover it up like they have. And when they're telling me they're talking to FBI and they should be reaching out soon, I unfortunately believed them. And I can't tell you how horrifying it is to meet young girls who look up to me, who watched me compete in the Olympics and tell me that they went to see Nassar because of me and my teammates, because they wanted to see the Olympic doctor. And I guess in his office, Nassar's office, he had some photos of us. And so they went to see him because they thought it was so cool to have the same doctor as us. And so that's been one of the hardest and most devastating parts for me, is so many survivors suffer with guilt and shame. And so it takes everything I have to work on not taking the blame for that, because it's horrific. And it's horrible to meet them and to know that over 100 victims could have been spared the abuse if all we needed was one adult to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I join all of my colleagues in thanking each of you for coming forward. And we know that there are young kids who look up to you as the fantastic athletes and gymnasts that you are. But as they get older, I hope that they realize the courage that so many of us use that word, courage, you coming forward to tell us your stories and the experiences of horrific abuse that you suffered. I think all people who have suffered abuse, it is really hard for them to even talk to anybody about it. And it was hard enough for you to report your abuse, to be very specific about what happened to you, but then to be shunted aside, to get the feeling that that the people that you relied on to do their jobs, that they thought it was not a big deal. I think that compounds the horrific abuse that you experienced. So you're right to demand better from the FBI, the USA Gymnastics, and others, including us, in this hearing today, and to show people that reports of abuse should be taken seriously, and those who come forward, as you did, should be believed, period. So your courage in shining a light on a culture of complicity, exploitation, and abuse of power inspire others to come forward. And so I acknowledge how much courage it took for you to report in the first place, to have to undergo that horrifying experiences, once again, to tell perfect strangers what happened to you and to not be taken seriously. And that is what we need to change. And you have to undergo therapy, but you know what? The main thing is that we should prevent these kinds of abuses from happening in the first place, and that is where, and of course, if it happens, we need to hold the people who abuse accountable. Thank you so much for coming forward.
Thanks, Senator Hirono. We probably have another 10 or 15 minutes, and I don't know if we need a break now or want to go straight through to the end. Anybody looking for a break?
We're good.
You're good? Mm-hmm. Great. Senator Booker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you as well for being here today. It took tremendous courage. I'm not sure how many people fully realize the burden on survivors in America to come forward and recall what happened to them. It is, in a sense, not just recalling the trauma and the violence and the pain, but it is, as you all well know, being forced to relive it. And for that, I'm deeply grateful that you would sit here in a room of strangers in front of powerful people and, again, relive that trauma. And I also know you didn't come here for our kind words or our proudness or our empathy. You came here for justice. You came here for action. You've heard words literally for years, and you're still fighting. you're fighting against a systemic problem in our country that isn't just in sports. We've seen it from church institutions to the Boy Scouts. When you talk about pedophilia all the way to sexual assault, we see it in diners, workplaces, factory floors. And you all as athletes are doing something in a tradition that is, to me, what has helped to call the conscience of our country forward and expand our moral imagination to stop injustices of other sorts, from people who endured outrageous realities like Billie Jean King, who used their platforms not to try to get individual attention, but to try to change this nation and make it more just. And so I'm grateful that we are at a point where we have such bipartisan determination in this town. It's not often enough, but here we have bipartisan determination of some of my most respected colleagues to deliver what you really came for, which is action. I say that to tell you also that we all know that the road to change, real change, systemic change, not just in sport, but in our culture, that seems to tolerate such a high level of this sort of violence, that is going to take time. And there's one saying that always rings in my head, that the only thing necessary for injustice to continue is for good people to do nothing. And you all have seen that firsthand. And so I've heard you before be asked the question by media to even in this institution today, you asked the question, do you have any words for other survivors? I would like to simply ask the question of you to answer, to put the point and the light where it belongs. It shouldn't take something directly happening to us to trigger our empathy and our action. And maybe I would like to know if you have any words for Americans who, amidst a country where this violence happens every single day, is there something you'd like to say to us who all have to understand that we are playing a part in a culture that allows this to happen?
I would like to say that I personally don't think that people realize how much experiencing a type of abuse is not something that one just suffers in the moment. It carries on with them sometimes for the rest of their lives. For example, being here today is taking everything I have. My main concern is I hope I have the energy even to just walk out of here. I don't think people realize how much it affects us, how much the PTSD, how much the trauma impacts us, and for every survivor it's different. Healing looks different for every survivor. The aftermath looks very different. For me, just to paint a picture, I used to train some days 7 hours a day when I was training for the Olympics, and processing my abuse affected me so much, and it is still something I struggle with, that I can remember when I first shared my story publicly for a very, very long time. I didn't even have the energy to stand up in the shower. I would have to sit on the floor and wash my hair because standing up was too exhausting for me. I couldn't even go for a 10-minute walk outside. And this is someone I've competed in 2 Olympic Games. And there are times where I feel like I forget what I'm saying. I feel like my mind isn't working. I feel like I have no energy at all. I'm 27 years old, and my 80-year-old grandfather has more energy than I do. And I've often wondered, am I ever going to feel better? And it has affected my health. In the last couple of years, I've had to be taken in an ambulance because I pass out, and I'm so sick from just the trauma. And it might not even be after a hearing like this, it just hits me out of the blue. And so I think it's important for people to understand how much even if we're not crying, how much we are all struggling and how much survivors are suffering. Because people often say, well, why did you just come forward now? Because it's terrifying to come forward, the fear of not being believed, but also because it affects us so much, and sometimes it's impossible just to say the words out loud. And so I just want people to know, and I'm sure for a lot of us, especially myself, like this might take me months to recover. And so I just wanted to make that clear, because I think it's important for people to start recognizing you may never know what someone else is going through, but for people who have been through trauma, it's really hard. And if someone's watching this that is feeling really tired, that is a survivor and doesn't know why they're having certain issues that are new, just know that that you're not alone, and I experienced the same thing, and hopefully in time we can feel better.
Thank you, Senator Booker. We believe Senator Blackburn is available by WebEx. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And because of limited bandwidth, I will just do this by voice, but I want to say a thank you to each of the women for being there today and the power of their stories and their words. 3 quick questions. And
Senator Blackburn, can you hear us?
yes, I can hear you.
We missed your three questions.
Yes, 3 questions. Number 1, what are the reforms that you would like to see take place? Number 2, if you do not trust safe sport, then what we would like to know is who is a trustworthy, or is there an organization or an individual that has your trust to be the go-to? And the third thing, did the FBI ever offer you a female agent who could walk with you through this process?
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. I'm going to let the panel respond to you, and we have 2 more witnesses, pardon me, 2 more members after you. Thank you.
I never had a female agent alongside me, and I'm sorry that I'm not answering more questions. Like, after telling that story, I'm exhausted.
Understood. Anyone else want to respond?
There was a female agent in the room with me at the OTC in 2016, but most of it was fueled by men just asking questions. But I honestly didn't know what I was walking into. They just told me I had a meeting with the FBI, didn't tell me what it was about. I was just pulled in a random, it was kind of like a hotel room, and they just started asking questions. I was never prompted.
All right. Senator Padilla?
I think I had a female agent in the room at the Olympic Training Center as well, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Well, I feel like we all had the same people.
But if I recall, my direct communication was with a male FBI agent.
Right, in the room.
Okay. Senator Padilla?
Good morning. I want to start by thanking Chairman Durbin and all those who have made this hearing possible, and to the panelists. Just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I admire and respect each one of you for choosing to participate today, for sharing your testimony with us. Clearly today is not easy. And I recognize that you each had the option of respectfully declining the invitation to be here, but you didn't. And I hope that you understand that your presence here is not just so important to the members of this committee and to the Senate as a body, but also speaks volumes for the countless victims of abuse that are out there listening or watching or will listen or will watch. I appreciate the conversation about mental health that was prompted by the questions from Senator Booker. My wife is a very active mental health advocate, and so she has trained me well to be cognizant of those issues and ask important and timely questions as well. And Ms. Biles, I hope you might have heard about some of our amplification of your courage from the most recent Olympics to take care of yourself first. It took a lot. It took a lot at that moment. I'm just going to offer a few comments. I think that most of the questions that I would raise have been raised by my colleagues, but I do also want to make it clear that Mr. Nassar's criminal cases, while they've been closed, we cannot and will not ignore the missteps that enabled his rampant misconduct. The power structure that shielded him has no place in America, not today, not in our future. And if we're to achieve the highest ideals of our nation, right, we talk about fairness and equality so often, then we won't just ask why. We cannot give up until we get the answers as to why this man was allowed to use his position of power to abuse for so long. We won't just ask why. We commit to getting the answers to why the initial investigation into these matters was bungled. And lastly, we commit ourselves to building a justice system that holds powerful people, learning from this particular case, but holds other powerful people accountable for their actions. So again, my main message to you is just thank you. Through your participation and what we will learn and what we will do, we hope to better protect future generations.